Hey guys, what's up? It's Veronica. So today I'm going to be showing you guys how to make some knitted boot cuffs. These usually take me about an hour to make, and they're really easy, so they're perfect for beginners. So without further ado, let's just jump right into the video.
First thing you're going to need to do is make a slip knot. Before making your slip knot though, make sure you have enough yarn on both sides of the slip knot because you will need it for later. To make a slip knot, make a loop and then pull your yarn halfway through the loop, forming another loop, and then tighten it. Now you can slip your loop onto one of your knitting needles. This is going to be your first stitch. Now I'm going to show you guys how to cast on. To cast on, you're going to want to start out by putting your thumb and pointer finger in between the two pieces of yarn hanging down from your needle. Then grab the lower pieces of yarn with the rest of your fingers. You should be able to see a triangle shape now. Take your needle on the outside of your thumb and pick up that piece of yarn. Now pick up the outside of the yarn on your pointer finger. Now you should be able to see a loop near your thumb, and you're going to want to bring your needle back towards your thumb and through that loop. You will now have two stitches. This can be a little confusing sometimes, so I'm going to show you guys again. So, stick your two fingers in between the two pieces of yarn and grab the rest of the yarn. Then, stick your needle through the yarn by your thumb, and then the outside of the yarn by your other finger, and then through the hole. Once you get this, it becomes extremely simple to do. Now you'll need to keep doing this until you have 15 stitches on your knitting needle. Once you're finished casting on, all you're going to want to do is to knit a basic garter stitch. To knit a garter stitch, the first thing you're going to want to do is stick your needle under and through the first loop on your needle. Now you should make a V shape with your two needles. Pull your working yarn up and over the V shape. Then bring your needle back around to the other side and pull your needle and yarn out of the original loop. You should now have a new loop on the other needle. To finish this off, slip the old loop off of the other needle. Now you just made a stitch. Keep repeating this process until all your loops are on the other needle. Now that you have all your loops transferred, switch your needle to the other hand and repeat the same process again. Each time you transfer all your stitches to the other needle, you create a new row. I needed 48 rows to make my boot cuffs, but this may vary in size according to you. When counting the stitches, I count the ribs and then multiply that by 2, because there are usually 2 stitches hidden kind of in between the ribs. Once you're all finished knitting, you're going to want to cast off. To cast off, I usually use a crochet hook about the same size as my needles, but you could always just use your needles instead. So, to cast off, the first thing you're going to want to do is slide all your loops onto the other needle. This is just so that the loop attached to your working yarn will be the last loop you stitch. Now, slide 2 stitches onto your crochet hook. Now, take the first loop and pull it over the second loop. Now you should just have 1 loop on your crochet hook. Take another loop from your needle and pull the old loop over the new loop. Keep repeating this process until you run out of loops. Once you reach your last loop, you're going to want to cut your yarn and pull it completely through the last loop. But make sure that you have about a foot extra of yarn because you will need it later. Once you're finished with that, you can weave the other tail of the yarn into your boot cuff. Once you're finished weaving in the one end, fold over your boot cuff so that they are overlapping. I also like to have the end that I casted off on the top so that you can see the nice braided look. I usually overlap 2 or 3 rows. Once you line up your boot cuffs, thread your plastic needle through the tail of the yarn. You could also use a crochet hook for this, but I decided a needle works way faster. You will now use this yarn to sew together your boot cuff. When sewing the boot cuff together, I try to stay close to the rib stitch because this really helps to hide your working yarn. Once you're finished, tie off your yarn on the inside of your boot cuff so it stays hidden. Now, all that's left to do is to sew on your buttons. I usually do 2 buttons, but you could use 3 as well. And I try and keep them towards the top of my boot cuff so that I can tuck the other part of the boot cuff into my boot. I also use matching thread to do this, but you could use black or white thread also. When you're finished sewing on your buttons, you're finished with one boot cuff. Now all that's left to do is to make the other one.